Hello and welcome to the Pinfall, the wrestling podcast that covers the 1, 2, 3 in the WWE. This week saw the WWE shuffle their pack during the 2020 draft. Which brand got the aces in the pack? Which kings and queens has this draft been good for? And were there any jokers that moved shows? We hope to answer all these questions on today's show. My name is Wilbs and I'm your host as always. And once again, I'm joined by Barnsey and Jordan. How you doing, lads?
Yeah, good mate. How you doing?
Yeah, all good, thank you.
Good. Right, before we start the show, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Please give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. And finally, to keep up to date with all of us on Twitter, you can follow our group Twitter handle, which is @thepinfallpod. Right, let's do this. The WWE Draft went down over 2 shows this weekend. Night 1 was Smackdown on the 9th of October, and Night 2 was Raw on the 12th of October. Right, let's start with Smackdown. So how it went down was Raw would get the first pick, and then Smackdown would get the next one, and then Raw, Smackdown, Raw. So the first round, Raw got the first pick and picked Drew McIntyre. Smackdown picked Roman Reigns. Raw picked Asuka. Smackdown picked Seth Rollins, and Raw picked the Hurt Business. So the first round pretty much went as expected. All the champions stayed on their show. How did you guys see the first few picks?
I think it was great that Drew was number 1 and Roman was number 2. I think it gives Drew just that number 1 spot for all the work that he's done during the coronavirus pandemic. He's been ever present. I think that he's been absolutely superb for Raw since becoming champion, and I'm loving his work. Same with Reigns since he's come back. Obviously, he had a condition, so he couldn't necessarily be around during the height of the pandemic, but since he's been back, his new character, siding with Heyman, superb. I think it would have been a little bit strange if Raw and SmackDown hadn't selected the champions as their number 1 pick. So, like Will said, it went as planned in the first round. Good to see Asuka as well getting picked for Raw, and again the Hurt Business is nice to see them. Nice to see them with Rollins in round 1 at the top of the tree, just for their work and loyalty to the company and carrying the shows almost like during the pandemic.
Yeah, I think with these sort of first 5 picks, it's sort of the guys who are really, top of the cards for both shows. Roman coming back has just been an absolute star for SmackDown, and the other 4 for Raw have been sort of the mainstay of the show since Mania and really sort of kept doing week in, week out top draw level stuff. So no surprises. And like Matt just said, with the champions, it's always weird. You'd think like as a brand you'd want to keep the champions you have and not lose them. So no surprises there.
Yeah, I thought it was good that Seth Rollins has finally got his move to SmackDown, because he seems to have been on Raw for quite a while now. So it's good that you can see sort of a freshened up Seth Rollins on SmackDown now. The next round of picks, we saw Raw pick AJ Styles, SmackDown pick Sasha Banks, Raw pick Naomi, SmackDown pick Bianca Belair, and Raw pick Baszler and Nia Jax. From this round, I think it was good that we could see that the women were really high in the pecking order on this draft. 5 of the first 10 picks were all women. One thing I was a bit sort of surprised with was Naomi getting picked the 8th pick overall. What did you think of that, and what do you think of Naomi?
Yeah, it was a strange one really, because she hasn't done a lot since Mania. So to be that high, you got to imagine that Raw have some big plans for her coming up. And for Asuka as well, I feel like Raw desperately needs a few sort of challenges for her. She's been sort of drifting over to SmackDown to fight Bayley and Banks a lot, due to the lack of stars there are on Raw at the moment to challenge her. And then, like you say, the other ones, no real surprises. Good to see AJ on Raw. He's just a star, and there's a good amount of wrestlers on Raw that you'd like to see him have a feud with.
Yeah, just quickly going back to Rollins, I think this is going to be his first ever spell on SmackDown, so it's pretty good that he's now going to be on the blue brand, so looking forward to seeing what he's going to do. But yeah, it's great that AJ Styles, I mean, for me, I always feel that Raw's the main show out of the 2, just I suppose, because it's been around the longest. So to have him on the Raw, I'm buzzing about. Naomi, big surprise, but it's sort of a little bit misleading in a way because there's two pools of wrestlers across shows that weren't eligible to be drafted on night one. So, like George said, I think they've probably got big plans for her moving forward, and hopefully, you know, she can get up into the title picture with Asuka. It'd be nice to see some more new feuds. Also seeing Bianca Belair go to SmackDown. That's pretty good. Hopefully, yeah, it'd be nice to see her in the title picture as well. And obviously Sasha, she's been a mainstay on there for a while now, so maybe she's going to win at Hell in a Cell, or we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I just think the potential for Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair is going to be a feud I really want to see, so fingers crossed we get that soon. Round 3, we saw Raw pick Ricochet, SmackDown picked Jey Uso, Raw picked Mandy Rose, SmackDown picked Dominic and Rey Mysterio, and Raw picked Miz and Morrison. So the first thing for me when I see that, I'm thinking the Mysterios and Seth Rollins are together on SmackDown. I guess that was the first thing you guys thought as well.
Yeah, it would have been really nice if they separated these two. The feud, obviously, you know, I'm not sure, for me, it lived up to the height that we all wanted it to. And the fact that they're now hopefully not going to continue on SmackDown, I think it'd be a shame if they do, just for the rest of the talent that is currently on that show. Jey Uso, obviously, in the title picture at the moment, so I think his stock has risen since he's had his little run in the main event. So not really too surprising to see him up there, but Ricochet, just the storyline on Raw, with him having the match and then being drafted to Raw. Hopefully, you know, now he's going to hopefully get away from the Hurt Business, even though they're on the same brand. I thought it was actually a bit of a shame that he didn't join the Hurt Business. I'd have actually been quite up for that. But yeah, getting the Miz and Morrison, I think they had quite a lot to the shows, and obviously they're not just a talk show, but they're great in the ring as well. And I actually think they're quite a good comedy act, and the more they work together, I feel like they're actually getting better in the ring. And yeah, now Mandy Rose is officially on Raw. Get her away from Otis. And I do quite like her being teamed with Dana Brooke, actually. I think they've got quite good chemistry, and it'd be quite good if at some point they're going to be given the tag titles.
Yeah, with Miz and Morrison, they are perfect for Raw, really. When you've got to fill a 3-hour show, like you just said, Matt, they're so funny. Their TV show is great, especially the way they come across. The Mandy and Dana one this week was especially brilliant, and it just seems to come so natural to them with their sort of natural charisma. Yeah, Rollins and the Mysterios, it felt like there was a few feuds on both brands leading up to the draft that felt like they were just sticking around until this draft come about and they could split them all apart. But we did see a bit of an odd theme where these feuds seem to cross over with each other. So hopefully they still do split and not just carry on some of these feuds that desperately need to end.
Yeah, so we go on to round 4 of the picks now, and I think this was probably the biggest talking point this round. We saw Raw pick Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods only, for SmackDown to then go and pick Big E, splitting up the New Day. And then Raw picked Dana Brooke, SmackDown picked Otis, and Raw picked Angel Garza. So obviously the headline on this bit is the New Day. They've split up on different shows.
Yeah, an end of an era. I'm not surprised. I think when we saw Big E start his singles run, I imagine if it weren't for Kofi's injury, we would have seen him maybe go heel on the other two. I thought the manner of it was so weird. To win the tag titles and then get drafted to Raw was so strange. And for me, immediately when I saw it, I was like, my God, they best have a good singles run coming for Cesaro and Nakamura, because why take the belts off them just to hand back to the New Day and then send them off to Raw? So it was proper strange. I think for Big E, it's good. I guess we'll see a bit of a character development now, because he won't have to deal with the New Day shtick, whether he goes heel or stays face, but a bit more. We talked about it before. Can he do a bit more of a serious sort of character? I guess we're about to find out. Otis, I mean, he's just been nothing really. Yeah, it's a shame. No, Heavy Machinery aren't together anymore. And Angel Garza, I'm pretty looking forward to seeing single wise. I think he's a great wrestler, has a lot to give, so hopefully he gets a good little mid-card run around the US title, and even with sort of, you know, when you've got AJ over there now, just to really help develop him and help keep producing his talents.
Yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed the New Day have split up, actually. I think it would have been quite good if they could have supported Big E in the way that they supported Kofi Kingston when he was going for his run. So I'm not sure it was actually needed, but like what George just said, it'd be quite nice to see Big E develop his own character now and not have these guys by his side, and see what he can do. Like, you're always wondering if they're going to interfere in matches or, you know, have heat backstage. But I feel like if they were going to split them up, they could have personally done it by having a heel turn. You know, they don't have to just split them up because it's a draft. But yeah, them winning the tag titles, just echo what George said. I'm gutted for Cesaro and Nakamura and hope that that's going to potentially be a singles run for them, because I think although Big E deserves a singles run, Cesaro and Nakamura going for the title definitely have earned that as well. Angel Garza, for me, out of him and Andrade, I actually prefer Andrade, and I was surprised that Garza was picked so high. I'd have actually probably preferred Andrade to be picked in his position, and I think that would have made Raw slightly stronger. But it'd be interesting to see again Angel Garza's character develop, especially after his match this week with Andrade. Just see what they do with that. And I suppose Dana Brooke was a little bit of a surprise as well, because you think she's only I think she's about the fifth or sixth woman picked. So WWE obviously hold her in quite high regard as well, and it'd be nice, yeah, if her and Mandy Rose, like I said earlier, can go on and maybe get some gold. And then Otis, I mean, he's just someone I sort of, the longer it goes on with him holding the Money in the Bank, I think the more of a joke it becomes. So I was hoping that Miz or Morrison were going to actually get this contract off him and just be done with him and the storyline, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. So we'll see what happens with him, but you can't imagine him actually cashing in on Roman Reigns and winning. I think it'd just be a bit farcical if anything like that was to happen.
Yeah, I think it says a lot when the Money in the Bank holder is the 19th pick in the draft. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. Also, I thought with Raw's pick with Dana Brooke, I did think they could have just picked Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke and got themselves another pick, but I guess that's all part of the story. So that was Angel Garza was actually the last pick on the actual show, and then after the show there was another round which we didn't see live on SmackDown. We saw Humberto Carrillo go to Raw, Murphy go to SmackDown, Tucker go to Raw, Kalisto SmackDown, and Drew Gulak go to Raw. So with them last picks, we see Murphy continue his feud with Rollins and Mysterio story. We see Heavy Machinery, they're now broken up. And we see Drew Gulak as well on Raw. I remember sort of earlier in the year, he was sort of really highly thought of. He was having sort of feuds with AJ Styles. Where's it all gone wrong for him, really?
I was just going to say, this round 5 for Raw was the 24/7 title roster lockup. Getting 3 guys really who's just going to, maybe not Humberto as much, but you just feel Tucker and Drew are just going to be sort of those pests around R-Truth now, just to freshen that a bit. Like you say though, Drew, was around the IC belt under sort of Bryan, and he's actually really good. He done some amazing stuff in 205. His PowerPoints thing was excellent, and his no-fly zone for a cruiserweight works so well. So it's a shame that he hasn't been used in that way. So even though I joke that this is the 24/7 lockup round, hopefully they do use him a bit more. Murphy, I'm gutted for as well. It'd been lovely to see him away from the Rollins and Mysterio and really have a good singles run. Hopefully, I imagine they've moved him just to continue on with Rollins and there has like a big blowout at a main pay-per-view. But again, an incredible wrestler. And Kalisto, I'm just happy he's away from the other two Lucha House Party because I actually enjoy them two without him. So yeah, there was round 5. Yeah, just a bit of a sort of adding this to bolster their rosters.
Yeah, I think you got it right there at the end. It was just something that didn't need to be aired on TV. I think if it had ended on SmackDown with this round 5 draft, I think we would have all turned off pretty sharpish. Yeah, I feel a bit like you say for Drew Gulak because he was doing really well, battling for the IC belt and going up against Daniel Bryan and being his like mentor and saying he can beat him and whatnot. And they produced some really good matches when they were in the ring. Pretty good for Humberto Carrillo to still be on Raw. He's actually now getting away from the Rawlins and the Mysterio feud, and he's actually really good in the ring. So I'm hoping he's gonna get a nice run as well. I really feel for Tucker. I think he's probably, like you say, maybe going to be in the 24/7 belt for a little bit, but I'd imagine he'll be getting his bags and potentially leaving WWE soon, because for me he's either got to be with Otis or he's a spare part. I'm not sure how they're going to develop him as a wrestler or in a storyline on Raw. But yeah, like you say, gutted again for Murphy going to SmackDown. Just, I don't know why they've paired so many feuds that are currently ongoing on the opposite brands. It's like, don't they realise WWE fans watch both shows? It's like, yeah, a weird one. And then Kalisto, yeah, I'm quite happy he's got away from Lucha House Party, but I'm not sure he's gonna muster much because he's been on his own before. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Thank God this round again wasn't on SmackDown for sure.
Yeah, so after that, there was a few people that hadn't been drafted at all, and then through social media, we saw that the remaining members of Lucha House Party are now on Raw. Chad Gable is on SmackDown, and the only other person was Mickie James. She's not been drafted anywhere, so where are we going to see her? Do you reckon it could be a potential return to NXT, or is there, well, we can come back to it later on, but maybe there's a sort of one of the sides which looks a bit weak in the women's division?
Yeah, I mean, Mickie James has only been back for 2 or 3 weeks. She wanted to go for the title, and then she's been off TV again. So I'm not surprised she's remained undrafted. I don't really know if you were the Raw or SmackDown channel or executives of the brand, you'd actually want or think that she can add much apart from experience these days. I think we've seen the best of her, and for me, I'm not too worried if we see her again.
Yeah, I mean, she was pretty active on Twitter, but yeah, she hasn't been in it for a while, so it's pretty outrageous. She's demanding all these things. You just did make me think, in my best CM Punk voice, where oh where are our broadcast war rooms this year? Because they were so cringy last year. It actually made it quite entertaining watching all these people celebrate, like, when, say, like this year, if they had a Tucker, imagine them all just buzzing, cracking open the beers. It'd be brilliant.
Okay, so let's now look at night 2, which went down on Raw this Monday night. Raw had the first pick and picked The Fiend, Bray Wyatt. SmackDown picked the Women's Champion, Bayley. Raw then picked Randy Orton. SmackDown picked the Street Profits, which were the tag team champions of Raw. And then Raw picked Charlotte Flair. So what do you think of this first round on Raw? Obviously SmackDown have gone heavy on their titles on this pick.
Yeah, I think once the New Day won the belts and then went to Raw, it was pretty obvious that the Street Profits were going to follow suit and go to SmackDown, just to separate the belts. And obviously Bianca Belair's there as well, who's obviously in a relationship with one of the Street Profits. You got to have Bayley the champion, I think, being the number 1 pick. It'd just add to her rivalry with Sasha, because she can now say I'm the the best, the dominant female on SmackDown, number 1 pick, etc., etc. Great to see Bray Wyatt come to Raw. I think it's good that he's getting away from SmackDown, or at least I thought before we continue with the rest of the draft. But it just opens up a load more feuds for him. Randy Orton obviously in the title picture, so no surprise he was at the top. And Charlotte Flair, for me, the best women's wrestler in the WWE, so she's definitely got to be in the round 1 for Raw, and hopefully she's not going to be too far away from returning to our screens.
Yeah, to have Flair in the round 1 of the Raw side of the draft, it must mean her return is imminent, or which is great, because like you just said, she is one of the best to do it. For The Fiend, I think The Fiend is perfect for Raw, because again, where you've got to fill a 3-hour slot, you can give him more time. Sometimes on SmackDown, when it's 2 hours, you're trying to cram it all in, and you need, with the Fiend character, you need it to be, give him a good 20-30 minute segment and really play him out, which is perfect for Raw. And then, yeah, SmackDown side, it's no surprise they went and got some champions. Bayley, again, is just the top dog on SmackDown, and it elevates her, and it's not another accolade for her to sort of brag about in this heel run. And Street Profits, yeah, once New Day went over, it'd been weird to not have any tag champions on SmackDown unless they were going to merge the belts, but that obviously didn't happen. And Randy, with a match here, Hell in a Cell with Drew, we would have been shocked if he did move over. So, yeah, again, no real surprises with pick one, or round one, sorry.
I'm just sticking with this round, though. I've got two questions for you. First off, with regards to SmackDown, which title do you think is more prestigious, the Intercontinental or the tag titles? And second of all, what did you think on Raw when you saw the New Day and the Street Profits just sort of swap their coloured championships? How did that sit with you?
I'll start with question 2 about the tag titles, because I've seen it be quite prominent on Twitter. For me, I just thought it was a non-event, and that they should swap belts. I know they've won the individual, but they're worth equal value. They're obviously red and blue for each brand, and I just feel like it was it was just a simple straight swap for me. I'm not sure why too much has been made of it. Going back to question 1 and the IC belt, obviously we'll talk about Sami Zayn and his draft slot later, but the fact he's not in the top 1 or 2, even without the belt, for me is completely baffling. And the fact that if he was drawn so late, why didn't Raw go in for him earlier, when you see some of the other wrestlers that we'll talk about first? So yeah, obviously they do see the tag title belt as more prestigious if you look at it from the draft point of view, but they're breaking up all the tag teams that can potentially fight the belts and sticking singles wrestlers together. So it's a bit of a weird one for me.
Yeah, it's crazy how low the IC belt is on this draft. I think it's probably still the second biggest belt behind the World Heavyweight title and / Universal title. I think the US title doesn't compare to it. The prestige that belt has had, and sort of the workers wrestlers belt, where these good technical wrestlers go earn their craft and then move up to the heavyweight belts. And then the tag belts, like Matt, I think it says more about the actual care of the tag division that there was no match, and just the lack of care with it all. Just have them swap them over. No real bother about it. And I imagine that's what the uproar was about. We didn't get to see a fight or anything, and I just think main roster tag division is just so poor at the moment. The lack of care of it is just a joke.
Yes, I was going to ask you guys another question with regards to the tag titles. Do you think they should do what they do with the women's and just combine the two championships, just have the tag champions go on both shows?
Yeah, I'd love that. I think the way they keep splitting up tag teams as well, like I think we have 4 or 5 go over these 2 days in the draft. It's outrageous. So why not just have it over both brands? Get NXT involved as well. Why not? I'd definitely be up for that. I think it's probably more needed now than ever.
Yeah, they sort of teased it, what was it, about 3 or 4 weeks ago on Raw, when Cesaro and Nakamura turned up, and you were like, oh, maybe they're going to have, title versus title at the pay-per-view, and, trim it down to having just one belt, which I think we'd all be pleased with, especially, like you say, because of the lack of tag team, combinations on the main roster. So, yeah, a little bit baffling, but in terms of the swapping of belts, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, the only thing I was thinking is obviously you've got Hell in a Cell's next pay-per-view, and then after that we've got Survivor Series, and they like to do the triple threat where each brand has a championship. So maybe we'll see after Survivor Series where they're going to go with the tag titles. But I'd be all in for them just having one belt. Okay, round 2 we saw Raw select Braun Strowman, SmackDown picked Daniel Bryan, Raw went for Matt Riddle, SmackDown went for Kevin Owens, and Raw picked Jeff Hardy. So still no IC title in the first 10 picks. Matt Riddle at number 8. Sorry, I was really shocked with this one. What about you guys? Would you expect to see Matt Riddle at number 8?
I don't really know. I saw another thing on social media this week that him and Seth Rollins have got a little bit of real life heat, it appears, with dating back to Riddle's missus having a go at what's her name, Becky Lynch, for what she was wearing at a pay-per-view at the back end of 2019. So I I wasn't surprised that he got drafted to Raw because of that, but yeah, quite surprised at how high he was when you think of like people that have yet to be drafted that we've not spoken about, like Keith Lee and you know, Alexa Bliss. There's a lot of good wrestlers that he's jumped in over, so it does show that WWE hold him in high regard. Yeah, what do you think, Jordan?
Well, yeah, it's a strange one. Since his call up to the main roster, it's not like he set the world alight. I mean, he pinned AJ, then he lost a couple, and then I think his last SmackDown he lost to Sheamus, and now he's picked quite highly. And like you said, a few names there like Keith Lee, Bliss, even Corbin, Zayn. We still haven't had like Cesaro and Nakamura. For him to go ahead of them is quite weird for me, because he hasn't done a great deal since he's been up. So yeah, very, very strange.
The only thing I've quickly thought of, and I hope it doesn't happen, is that obviously Raw has the Raw Underground, and his last sort of fight on NXT was the Fight Pit against Timothy Thatcher. So I hope to God they don't stick him in there, but I would not be surprised.
Yeah, they could do that. Or they could also tag him with Jeff Hardy, which they did on the SmackDown. So there's a few options for Matt Riddle. I was just surprised he was picked so highly. I don't think he's a bad wrestler. I just think there's a lot better than him, really. So the third round, we saw Raw pick Retribution. SmackDown picked Lars Sullivan. Raw picked Keith Lee. SmackDown picked King Corbin. And Raw picked Alexa Bliss. So there's quite a lot going on in this round. Still no IC title, by the way. Lars Sullivan, I could not believe how highly he got picked. Obviously, I asked you guys this. Are you a fan of Lars Sullivan? Because for me personally, I don't see what the hype's all about.
I really liked him in NXT, and then he sort of went away, and now he's back. So I guess, you know, this will be like sort of the rebuild phase for him. For a big guy, he is a pretty sound wrestler, which I quite like. So it'd be interesting who he goes in against. I think it was said on the Miz TV he had a scheduled match with, I can't remember who. With Jeff on SmackDown. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what he does. But yeah, like you, I don't think there'd be much hype about him. He'd probably end up in Raw Underground with Braun. As we know, Vinnie Mac loves two big sweaty wrestlers clashing. So I imagine he'd just head there with Braun for a bit.
Yeah, Lars Sullivan, I've seen very little of him. I mean, he come up to the roster and did the same sort of thing that he's currently doing on these two shows, just dismantling wrestlers. I think he obviously got injured, or, you know, he's been gone for such a long time. I completely forgot about him. So when he re-emerged to attack Miz and Morrison on SmackDown, I was a bit like, oh yeah, him. And then obviously he was added to the Raw poll, so that you knew that they had ambition for him to be high on the roster. So, I mean, I'm not surprised he's this high, but for me, I wouldn't have him picked in the third round at in the top 12 picks. So yeah, but the rest of the round, and just even going back to the last round, hopefully Daniel Bryan's going to be back soon, and I think it's great that Kevin Owens is now on SmackDown. You know, hoping he's going to get in and around Sami Zayn, because when they fought previously, it's just been absolute fireworks. Even if they put them together, it'd be great. Jeff Hardy and Braun Strowman going to Raw wasn't great because, again, it feels like they're not separating any of the current rivalries. They're just moving them onto another show. Braun, you know, similar with Bray. Hopefully they're not going to continue their feud. Jeff Hardy, obviously, currently feuding with AJ Styles. So, you know, it'd be nice if we get some new feuds. But yeah, back to what we were just discussing with Retribution and Keith Lee and Alexa Bliss. I think that's three really solid picks for Raw. Just the amount you get with Retribution. We've not obviously seen the whole crew be revealed yet, so it'd be interesting to see what additions they add. But Keith Lee's come up, pinned Orton on pay-per-view, had some really solid matches. Looks like he's going to fight Strowman moving forward. They had a massive tear up on SmackDown, so it'd be good to see that one go again. And Alexa Bliss with Bray Wyatt, I mean, that is that not the hottest thing on any of WWE at the moment? I mean, her going after Zelina Vega on Raw with the Fiend's music hitting, you think he's going to come out, and all of a sudden it pans to her in the corner and she's doing the Fiend expression, upside down look, and then just attacks Zelina Vega. I was just all in for that, just literally could not get enough of it. So I thought Raw really had a strong round 3, as did SmackDown. I mean, we've already spoken about Lars Sullivan, but King Corbin, I think he's such a good heel. He's good at putting wrestlers over when they need to fight someone and give them some stock. So yeah, delighted for Corbin's being picked at round 3.
Just with Raw as well, the potential of a Survivor Series, if you give Bray a Fiend family, of a Survivor Series triple threat of a Fiend family, Hurt Business and Retribution, I mean, that would be a hell of a match. And yeah, I think for, again, 3-hour show, factions, and I think factions need to come back in general. I think they're really cool. And you see them a lot more on the indies. I think New Japan Wrestling do a lot of good factions, so definitely bring them back and definitely use them more. And yeah, like you just said, I thought Raw, this is where they really sort of excelled with the draft, and with sort of Bryan and sort of with Flair as well. I always find with drafts like this, you sort of you go on based on like the last 6 months of sort of what's happened in WWE, and sort of, I don't know if it's just me, but you sort of base it on form, and it just seems weird that someone like Zayn, who had a triple threat ladder match win, is so low when Bryan hasn't been on the card, I don't think, since Mania. But I don't know if that's just me, or if it's probably just the way the WWE do the stories, but I just find it a bit hard not to go off form.
Yeah, well, speaking of Sami Zayn, he was picked on the following round. First off, Elias was picked going to Raw, then Sami Zayn going to SmackDown, Lacey Evans to Raw, Nakamura and Cesaro joint pick going to SmackDown, and then Sheamus going to Raw. So finally we've got Sami Zayn picked going to SmackDown. I mean, this is the Sami Zayn fan club podcast, also known as Pinfall. And yeah, I just can't believe he's so low. I just think it's one of the, well, there's a few things I'm not happy with, but that's definitely one of them. But yeah, it's good for Sheamus to get a bit of a freshen up on Raw. What about you guys?
Yeah, finally Sami Zayn comes out. I mean, how did Raw not pick Sami Zayn instead of Elias as their, first pick in round 4 when they know he's available was beyond me. But it's quite good they've got Elias on Raw. I actually really like what he offers, not just in the ring, but he breaks it up, and I think Jordan said a couple of times already, he on Raw will get more TV time than he would on SmackDown just because of the length of the show. And I also like the long-term story that he's come back and obviously attacked Jeff Hardy, obliterating that guitar around him this week. So it looks like they're going to continue a feud for a little bit. Who else do we get? We've got Lacey Evans, the sassy Southern Belle. What do I think about her coming to Raw? I suppose, is she going to be in the title picture? I'm not too sure. Sheamus coming to Raw again. He's a bit like Corbin. He plays the heel so well, and he's good at putting the faces over. So quite happy for him. But for me, SmackDown definitely won this round, getting the IC belt, and then they obviously got Cesaro and Nakamura, who obviously we mentioned earlier. Hopefully will split up from their tag run and go on a singles venture, because they're too talented, I think, not to be at least fighting for the belt. And even having them three fight for the IC belt would be something that I'd be well up for.
I thought you were going to go for a one-man pod then on the Lacey Evans. Asking your own questions. Going back to Zayn, because, this is the fan club for him. I just think as well, it's strange that, he's been red hot for the last few weeks since he's come back. And then, even from a logical sense of a draft, when there's a champion on the board that SmackDown have yet to take, surely Raw are looking at it thinking, bloody hell, we could have 4 or 5 belts here and just leave SmackDown with one. So it's just baffling, the sort of sense they're trying to make with it. But happy he's still on SmackDown. I think he's been top class. Hopefully it continues with Cesaro and Shin there. If they're going to get split or put all 3 together, I think that group in that round 4, just having them 3 all feud each other is just money. All 3 are just world class, and if you put them around the IC belt, you're going to get nothing but good things. It's good to see Elias back as well. I think he's been missed. He does break up a show. Again, he just oozes charisma with that guitar. So yeah, happy he's back. Lacey, good refresh for her now as well. And lastly, with just Sheamus, I mean, he'd just carry on doing what he was doing on SmackDown, just over on the red brand.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, Lacey Evans, for me, I think she's one of the most underrated women in the roster, so I'm glad that she's gone to Raw, freshen up, and hopefully she get a shot at Asuka, really. The next round, we saw Raw pick Nikki Cross, SmackDown picked Rude and Ziggler, Raw picked the 24/7 champion, R-Truth, SmackDown picked Apollo Crews, and Raw picked Dabba-Kato. So Raw's got the last champion available, which was R-Truth. But less said about that, the better. And Apollo Crews going to SmackDown. So now he's away from the Hurt Business. He's away from Ricochet. How do you think he's going to do on SmackDown with a fresh start?
I imagine Apollo just go back to doing Apollo things and losing. He's had his moment now. So yeah, he's just going to go back and sort of put on really good matches, but always be on the losing end. I am also absolutely gutted Dolph Ziggler's not going to be able to carry on his Raw Underground 100% record of showing up, even though no one really wants him there. But him and Rude, I don't really know. They've sort of been patched as tag team, and it happened months ago as well, but they don't really do much, so I'm not too sure how they will really affect that tag division over there. Nikki Cross, is a shame she sort of, again, like we've said, with sort of Rollins and Murphy and stuff, she looks like she's following Bliss over. Hopefully they can sort of split them, and then Dabba-Kato it baffled me. Raw Underground stars were in this, because isn't the Underground sort of like not part of Raw? It's just it takes over for the last hour, and then they were on the draft board, and then all ended up in Raw anyway. So it was just weird.
Yeah, for me, this is where it sort of started going downhill for Raw a little bit. Getting Nikki Cross, I mean, I think you've heard my opinion on her before. I'm not actually that much of a fan of her, so yeah, let's move on. The R-Truth, the 24/7 champion. Yeah, I mean, I've seen on Raw Talk this week when he's doing an interview with AJ Styles, and he's trying to get Styles to break character on the show, and it is actually quite funny. But some of the sketches he does on Raw, where they're fighting in a dumpster truck this week or whatever it was, it's just it's the bit that I probably fast forward. And then yeah, moving on to the Underground, like George just said, it was so strange they even had these wrestlers in there. So I'm not surprised. Obviously they ended up on Raw, but definitely a stronger pick for SmackDown here, getting Ziggler and Rude. Nice to see Rude go back. I'm not actually sure these two will be a tag team for a while, but it looks like they're going to start off by feuding with the Street Profits. So yeah, it should be a nice title defense of the Street Profits there. And Apollo Crews, again, he's not someone who I ever look forward to seeing in the ring, really. I know he held the US belt for a little bit on Raw this year, but I think that was just solely to fill the void. And yeah, quite happy to see him move to SmackDown. See what he's going to do there.
Yeah, I quite like Apollo Crews. I think you guys have been a bit harsh on him. Hopefully this fresh start hopefully can maybe get in the Intercontinental picture. I'm not sure, but yeah, time will tell with Apollo Crews. The very last picks that we saw on Raw, we saw Titus O'Neil go to Raw, Carmella go to SmackDown, Peyton Royce go to Raw, Aleister Black on SmackDown, and Tozawa on Raw. So with this pick, I had three things with this draft which I didn't like. Obviously, we just covered the first one a few picks ago, so talking about Sami Zayn, how low he was picked. The other thing that's really bothered me is Aleister Black, the 29th pick in this draft. I mean, you're having a laugh. For me, Aleister Black, he's in the top 10 for me. I think he's brilliant. I think obviously his character's changed a little bit now. So I'm not sure if he's lost a little bit of momentum, but he's a class wrestler, and to be picked 29th and after people like Titus O'Neil for a start, Lars Sullivan. I mean, I was fuming when this happened. What about you guys? You fans of Aleister Black?
Yeah, absolutely love Aleister Black. I can't believe he's this low either when you actually look and reflect on this. I mean, I'd even have him above Apollo Crews. You know, like you said, top 10. He's right down the pecking order. And he's in the same draft list, like you said, as Titus O'Neil and Akira Tozawa. Jesus. So it sort of shows what they think of Aleister Black in a way. So I'm hoping he's not going to get lost on the roster, but he's definitely someone I'd love to see battle with Sami Zayn and getting that IC title picture. Obviously, I'm not surprised that Carmella's still going to be on SmackDown. They've obviously been promoting her in the last few weeks, and I'm sure she's probably going to be on our screens sooner rather than later. Peyton Royce, for me, was a little bit of a shock. I thought she would have been higher up. I mean, how has she not been picked before Nikki Cross? Even Lacey Evans, for me, I think I'd have rather seen Peyton Royce up in that slot. So, quite low down for me. But yeah, definitely another strong pick for SmackDown here for me. Carmella and Aleister Black over Titus O'Neil, Akira Tozawa, and Peyton Royce.
Yeah, this was another Raw 24/7 lock-up round. O'Neil and Tozawa, keep it fresh. Yeah, I mean, what rock did he come out from? Because he's had like that random win, I think, on Raw Underground, and now he's just like being picked. With Royce being this low, I think it actually made me re-look at the Raw women's division, and it's pretty stacked now. I'm quite looking forward to all the feuds now they have for Asuka, because currently without Lynch and Flair there, I think she is the best women's wrestler currently active. So to have all these sort of women wrestlers now on Raw who can really go and have a few pay-per-views with her, it's exciting for the Raw women's division. Like you guys, Black. Hopefully this is a refresh for him. It's a bit annoying that he's following Owens over. It's just one of those feuds that I thought would hopefully die. Get rid of his sort of eye patch and get the NXT Black we all know and love. And then Carmella with her new character. I guess time would tell what happens with her. Former women's champ, so you know they have high stock in her, or they know they can trust her at the top. So yeah, we'll see what happens with her as well.
Yeah, the only thing with Aleister Black is they might sort of turn it into a bit of a storyline where he was maybe like goes along the lines of not being wanted or being sort of looked upon. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Aleister Black. But for me, that was the second out of three things I really wasn't happy with. The third thing I wasn't happy with was Andrade. I mean, this guy was not picked at all on the draft. And I mean, again, we've said a few names like Tozawa, Titus O'Neil. I mean, he didn't get 30th pick. He's just been overlooked completely. I mean, why do you guys think this? Do you think he's? I mean, today he put a picture up of him holding the NXT title. Do you think he's going to go back to NXT?
He's one of these wrestlers you see, and when you see him misused on the main roster, you just beg they go back to NXT. There's a whole list of names he falls into that category. Yeah, shocking. He was not drafted at all, especially when he's read out some of the names we just did, especially at the back end when you got Titus, Tozawa. It's just, and no one wanted him. It's just farcical how we're meant to sort of believe that. But if he goes back to NXT, it just elevates the yellow brand again, and I'd love him back there because he's such a superstar. We know what he can do in the ring. It's a shame the main roster haven't let him showcase him and Vega what they do best. So yeah, hopefully he does go back if this is how Raw and SmackDown are going to treat him.
Yeah, I think I echo that. I'd love to see Andrade go back to the yellow brand. You can just imagine him fighting Finn Balor for the title. That just is more appealing to me than him having just a lower card feud on one of the main rosters, actually. But yeah, it's interesting because obviously he actually had a title match with, or was it a non-title match on Raw with Drew McIntyre only a few months ago, with a storyline based around the injury that he inflicted on Drew with his shoulder. So yes, I'm baffled by the decision not to have him drafted, but obviously in the storyline, the only logical thing that can come out of this is that he goes to NXT. So yeah, let's hope that tonight we see him there.
Yeah, so obviously he's got the NXT option. Obviously he's dating Charlotte in real life, and she's on Raw, so I wouldn't be too surprised if he did end up on Raw. And we're going to touch on it now, but Selena Vega's on SmackDown, so there's options all round for Andrade, but I'm just still shocked now. I mean, this guy is one of the best for me, and it wasn't too long ago. I think he was one of the first picks in one of the first rounds, so yeah, it's a real shame, really. So after the show, like I said, there was a few more sort of picks that we didn't see. Raw got Lana, Riddick Moss, and SmackDown picked up a few women. They picked up Natalya, the Riot Squad, Selena Vega, Tamina, and Billie Kay. So yeah, that's the end of the draft, really. Just looking back, who do you think was the winners over the two nights? Do you think it's Raw or do you think it's SmackDown?
Well, firstly, that sort of ends draft picks that SmackDown acquired. Then it's almost like WWE went, "Fuck, we've just sent everyone to Raw. SmackDown needs some women." So, in terms of Raw, to me looks more exciting now. But then I always enjoyed SmackDown for what it was anyway. So I think Raw has definitely, for me, improved itself if they use all these sort of new guys the right way. The women's division especially is just looking pucker now, and then the additions of The Fiend and Miz TV and such, just it really broadens out the 3 hours instead of having that sort of lull of like, Christ, we need like a 30-minute sort of whatever. And then SmackDown just gonna carry on doing what SmackDown does. I think it's a good 2-hour show, and they seem to have got more technical wrestlers, which I like. They definitely go for that more sport edgier side rather than the entertainment side. So hopefully we just get good feuds, let these old feuds that were peter on for too long die, and move them all forward.
Yeah, I just think from a logical point of view, obviously Raw is, and whilst it is 3 hours, should always be more stacked and have more options, because I'm still always a little bit baffled as to why it is 3 hours still, because it is so difficult to keep people entertained for that period of time. I personally feel like Raw has come out slightly better, especially more at the top of the card. Some of the dream matches you can get for the title now, with Flair coming back on the women's side, like Jordan was just saying, completely stacked, and even on the men's side, there's just so many top guys at the top. Whereas I feel like SmackDown has invested heavily in maybe the Intercontinental title, or they can push a few of these guys up to the main belt, almost like what they do in NXT with the North Americans to the NXT title. It feels like the middle of the card for me is more stacked. I'm looking forward to seeing both shows, a little bit of a refresh. I know that we've said that a lot of the wrestlers in current feuds on their old brands have moved, but logically you'd think they would separate these now and move them on to different things. So we're probably end the feuds at Hell in a Cell and then start fresh next month.
Yeah, I think both brands have done really well here. Like you said, Raw's now got some good acts sort of to fill the 3 hours, and SmackDown's got some really good wrestlers and to do what they do best and put on some good wrestling shows. Just looking at the rosters now, if you was to sort of look ahead now with your crystal ball looking in towards WrestleMania, what do you reckon would be the top men's and women's matches on both shows? So which 4 matches do you reckon would sort of be headline WrestleMania matches? Obviously it can change because they can win the Royal Rumble and move shows, but based on what you see in front of you, what would be your 4 main matches?
Cool, this is a tricky one. Just looking through now, I'm going to go Drew and AJ for Raw title. And then SmackDown is definitely going to be Roman Reigns. I'd quite like to see him with Daniel Bryan. That would be quite a good match. Especially how babyface Bryan is compared and how heel Roman is now. That could be a good fun feud to do. If not that one, I imagine Reigns Rollins has got to be a big main event push. Otherwise, women's side, Asuka Flair definitely for Raw. Have a repeat of that one a few years back, which was an absolute epic. And then for SmackDown, probably annoyingly Bayley and Banks. I imagine we're just going to have it sort of go on and on and on and on until Mania comes back round.
Yeah, the only other one that I'd really want that sort of whet the appetite after Clash of Champions was a potential Reigns, versus Rock match. As we're fantasy booking here. I think having Daniel Bryan definitely in the main event wouldn't be a bad thing, even though Stephanie McMahon's still continuing to call him the B+ player. Charlotte Flair Asuka, that's got to be the Raw main event, unless Alexa Bliss is gonna be involved in the women's title match on Raw. But looking on SmackDown, the top 2 women's picks were from SmackDown, Banks and Belair, and then Bayley and I think Carmella on Raw. So between them 4, hopefully, like George says, we're not just going to get Banks and Bayley all the way to Mania. So it'd be nice if they mix it up, and I think Belair's got a lot to offer. She was. I don't think she was ever NXT Women's Champion, but she was always at the top of the card towards the end of her days there. So she's definitely got the stock in her, and I'd love to see her actually maybe win the belt. It'd be pretty good.
Yeah, so for me, I think on the Raw side, I'd say Drew McIntyre versus The Fiend Bray Wyatt would be good. We always say that we don't know if The Fiend needs the title, but I guess if you're looking to build the best match at WrestleMania, you'd have to include him. If not, maybe I'll go someone like Keith Lee. They've sort of kept them apart for a while, so maybe they could build that up to a WrestleMania. And then on the women's side, obviously Asuka, Charlotte would obviously be really good. If she can't make it, Charlotte, then maybe Baszler. SmackDown, I'm a massive Seth Rollins fan. I think it'd be good if they turned him babyface at some stage, but it looks very unlikely at the moment. But Reigns Rollins would be good. And then on the women's side, yeah, it has to be Bayley versus Banks. We're not sure how it's going to go down at Hell in a Cell and how they're going to get there to WrestleMania, but let's just hope they do. Well, that's the draft covered now. No NXT call-ups on this round, so maybe they're going to wait till after Survivor Series, get NXT looking strong again, and then maybe call someone up. But yeah, that was the draft. I think on the whole, probably a thumbs up. Just Sami Zayn, I can't get over it, how low it was. And yeah, Andrade and Aleister Black, for me, them three were really hard done by. But apart from that, I think both shows are now looking better for the draft. So that would probably do us on today's show. Thank you very much for listening. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give us a follow on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter. We are at the Pinfall Pod. And that is it. That's the 1, 2, 3. Let's ring the bell.